D'Lo Brown, and you better recognize this. When I want the absolute best in Bears coverage, I listen to Sportsman Radio. Now, are you down with that?
And we are back on Sportsman Radio. I'm your host, Chris Shanafelt, and I am now joined by former World Wrestling Federation WWF superstar who is now with TNA. He is D'Lo Brown. How's it going, D'Lo?
Man, I'm hanging in there, bro. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for joining me on the show tonight.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So I want to
talk Bears all day long. Trust me.
Yeah, man, sounds good. And I want to start off by talking just a little bit about your wrestling career. Does that sound good?
Keep going, though. It's all good.
All right. What was it like? What was your first professional wrestling match like? Can you tell us about it?
My very first wrestling match is probably very anticlimactic. It was 1994. I was wrestling a kid named Dave Dutch, and it ended in no disqualification. But I was nervous as hell. Had about five or six friends of mine in the crowd, and I was so nervously excited. But it was probably the greatest thing I'd ever done. So I got the urge to just keep going and going and going, and who knew it would turn out for something, a career like this.
How did you know you wanted to pursue in a career in wrestling?
It's what I wanted to do since I was 11 years old. I played every other sport. I played football, I did track, but I was watching wrestling as a kid growing up, and I remember at 12 years old telling my sister, I remember watching Maggie G89 wrestling. I looked at her and said, I want to be one of those guys one day, and she laughed at me. And then like 15 years later, she and I were having a conversation. She goes, you told me you were going to do this, you know that. And I said, yeah, I remember that. So it's just something I've always wanted to do.
I know you then joined the Nation of Domination, which was ran by Farouk. How was your time in that group?
Bro, tremendous. Farouk was I always idolized Farouk and looked up to him growing up, watching him as Ron Simmons in WCW and watching him come to the WWF as Farouk, and it was the guy I always wanted to be like. And then, strange, I remember being in Baltimore Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, when he won the WCW World title, and then 4 years later I'm teaming up with him, and I thought that was just crazy. I couldn't believe it was happening. So some of the best time of my life, some of the best lessons I've ever learned came from Farouk, and not wrestling ring. Was in a car driving 300 miles, 400 miles after a show, and he would just go, open up school, and he would just lay down. That's some of my best lessons in wrestling came from is those car rides.
Your famous finishing moves were the lowdown and sky high. Can you tell us how those moves were created?
Well, the sky high was a variation of a move that I'd seen Al Snow do, and I thought I could make it better, and that's why I changed it to the way I did it. And I gotta tell you, I think it's better. The sky, the lowdown was my way of paying respect, not to Eddie Guerrero, but to a guy Eddie Guerrero teamed up with, a guy named Art Barr, who I was also a big fan of, and he did the first Frog Splash, and that was my way of paying. He had passed away at a very young age. That was my way of paying, showing respect to him, and I just love the fact that somebody that big was jumping up the top rope, something that people hadn't seen, in our business, and that kind of made me different.
During your WWF career, you were a 4-time European champion and a 1-time Intercontinental champion. Were you happy with your role in the WWF?
I was happy for what it was. I was very young, and it was what was given to me. You take what you can. I had tremendous amount, respect for everyone I was there with. I loved my time there. I would do it all over again. But there was always a sense of me that told me I had there was bigger things in store for me.
And they decided to let you go in February of 2003. Can you tell us how that all went down?
It was one of those deals where my time had come to an end, and it was time to move on. And it was an amicable split. It was I had been there for several years, and the last year or so I was just floating around. So I wanted to explore other possibilities. And that was opening up my avenue going to TNA the first time and going to Japan. And that's, really where I wanted to take my career to.
D'Lo, I'm really good friends with Bob Howard, a.k.a. Hardcore Holly. What was your relationship with Bob Holly, if you don't mind me asking?
Bob Holly is a tough son-bitch. You know what? If he liked you, you knew, and if he didn't like you, you knew even more, because he would tell you. And he's a tough guy. He was a motivator. He was, in a sense, like a drill sergeant. He kept everybody in line, kept all the young kids in line, and I had some really good matches with him and learned a lot from him. So I have a lot of respect for Bob Holly.
Do you have any good memories with or about Bob that you would like to share on the air?
I just remember him punching one kid in the face so hard it was funny. The kid messed up in a match and Bob just punched him so hard it looked like an MMA fight before there was MMA. So it was quite funny. I mean, that's really the biggest thing. Every story you can tell about Bob Holly ends up with him punching someone in the face. But I will tell you this: one time, he and I were driving together, and for those who don't know, Bob Holly was a real race car driver. Yeah. His pastime is he drive race cars. So he and I are in a rental car together, and he's driving. Stupid mistake. So we're driving down the highway. I don't know what it is, but he's drafting off of trucks in front of us and passing them. And he's 2 inches off the bumper of a truck. And I'm like, Bob, what are you doing? He goes, I'm saving fuel. And I just said, Bob, I'll buy more gas. We don't have to be that close to the truck.
Oh, man.
So that's Bob.
All right, D'Lo, one last wrestling question for you, then we'll talk some Chicago Bears, and that is, I know you're now at TNA. What exactly are you doing over there? I'm sorry, man, I don't really pay too much attention to wrestling anymore.
It's okay. What now I do is I'm a roadside agent. I'm a backstage agent where, I help guys put their matches together. I help critique them and give them guidance in the match process. And that's my role now. I also am in charge of a lot of the developmental aspects of TNA, where I'm out looking for young, inspiring talent trying to make their way up into wrestling. So my career is kind of taking the office side now, and I'm very happy with that. It was time for me to segue into the office, and I couldn't be happy about the decision and choice I made in my career.
You guys are listening to Sportsman Radio. I'm your host, Chris Shanafelt, talking with D'Lo Brown. All right, man, let's talk some Chicago Bears. I'm going to start off by asking you, what are your thoughts on the firing of now former head coach Lovie Smith, which occurred on New Year's Eve?
And I got to say, I think Lovie was a victim of his own success, because we would have 10-win seasons and we'd start out 7-3, or this year 7-1, and then we'd fall apart late. And he always got the most out of inferior talent. Trust me, he had some bad teams and he did some good stuff with. But I just think maybe his voice became, mute in the locker room. And there's no reason this year to start 7-1 and not make the playoffs. I'm sorry. There's no excuse for that. And sometimes, when, things happen like that, it falls on the head coach, and you can't fire an assistant. You can't fire a position coach. Sometimes the head coach has got to fall on the sword, and that's what happened this year.
That's exactly right. The Bears, they hired an offensive-minded coach now in Mark Trestman, who has some experience in the NFL, but has never been a head coach in the NFL. Over the last few years, he's been a head coach for the CFL's Montreal Alouettes and won 2 Grey Cups, which is the equivalent of 2 Super Bowls to us NFL fans. I'm actually a really big fan of this hiring of Trestman. I think he could do really good things with our quarterback, Jay Cutler, and get our offense on to the right step. What do you think about that, D'Lo?
Well, here's my thing. I've seen the history of Mark Trestman with certain quarterbacks, Steve Young, Rich Gannon, and watched how he has helped them elevate their career. And he's taken young, erratic, but yet talented quarterbacks and fine-tuned them and pushed them off to MVP and Super Bowl status. We have a very young, erratic, yet talented quarterback. So it fits the mold of what he has already done. You look at the history of Mark Trestman up in the CFL, he took a 40-year-old quarterback and won 2 Grey Cups. You look at a team, he took the exact same team that had given up 45 sacks one year with the exact same offensive line and lowered it to 20 sacks. I can't, the system he's got in place seems to work. I hope it works in the NFL. I hope his guys don't look at the Green Bay Packers and think that they get in the death mode. I just hope that they can, get their system here, get it in place, and get the most out of our talent.
Yeah, now, D'Lo, I'm really quite surprised by the stats you're throwing out, and they're all correct. Are you a Bears insider? Do I not know about this?
Bro, I study. If you cut me right now, I bleed blue and orange. So I mean, I love my Bears, and if I don't know what's going on with them, then there's something wrong. I mean, it's the number one sports franchise I follow on this planet, and so I got some good friends in the Chicago market who throw stuff at me. And I just study and read and listen. I want to know what's going on. I don't want to be, a fan that just watches on Sunday. I'm interested in free agency starting on Tuesday. Yeah. I'm wondering how we're going to get under the salary cap. I wonder what we're going to do with Urlacher. And I wonder if we're going to sign Melton to a long-term deal and get that franchise tag off. Bro, I got a lot of things going on. You know what I'm saying? So I love the Bears.
Hey, man, I love it. And you mentioned Brian Urlacher. The Bears are actually in discussions with linebacker Brian Urlacher about bringing him back. I think Urlacher will return, although I don't think the Bears will really suffer if he were to leave. Would you like to see number 54 back with the Bears?
I would like to see him back with the Bears. It's one of those guys that it's seeing Jerry Rice in an Oakland their uniform. It's seeing Joe Montana in the Chiefs uniform. I don't want to see Urlacher wearing any other colors other than the blue helmet. I don't. And I just think it would be sad to see him lining up for somebody else. Now, I understand his age, and I understand he still wants, he probably still wants $4 or $5 million a year, and he might not be worth that money. But he is the leader of my defense, and he is our quarterback on that side of the ball, and even at an advanced age and a little less skill level, you saw a guy in Ray Lewis will his team to a Super Bowl, and he couldn't tackle anybody if they were running right at him. But yet his presence alone made the other 10 guys on the field better, and that's what Urlacher does, and that's why I want him back in the middle of our game.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Urlacher back. It would hurt to see him in another NFL uniform. Now, D'Lo, I would like to see the Bears build on that offensive line. It's been a struggling factor for the Bears for years now, but there isn't really a name out there that I would like to see them go after. I wouldn't mind left tackle Jake Long from Miami, but there really isn't a name that sticks out to me. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go after that or tight end. Is there anybody specific in free agency or any position that you would like to see the Bears address in the 2013 NFL draft or free agency?
Well, the big thing is in free agency, I want to see them address the offensive line. Jake Long, I like him, but from what I'm reading, he's going to want a huge number, and that's not something we can do right now with our cap struggles. I hope we can address O-line and free agency so that we can lead the draft for a position like tight end. Like, I love that tight end of Notre Dame. I think he's just, it's the only guy I want from Notre Dame, and I won't say any other name, but he's the only guy I want from Notre Dame. And I want to play making tight end. I want to get an offensive line that's, athletic and quick and can protect our franchise quarterback, because I don't care how good of an arm you got, if you're on your back, you can't complete a pass. And that's our pressing need right now. I think our defense, although a little older, is still status quo, and I think we'll go out there and still be, a top 15 defense just as it's constructed right now. We just need our offense to move from 27th into the top 10, and we'd be badass.
And do you believe if the Bears were to fix this offensive line that they would be able to, skyrocket that those offensive numbers?
With the weapons we got in B. Marshall, a growing Alshon Jeffries, Earl Bennett when he's playing his true position in the slot, with 14 at backfield running, if we keep Cutler standing up and give him a chance to look down the field, my God, we've already seen glimpses of it last year. We saw glimpses of when the offensive line held together, and you're like, wow, why can't we do this for 16 games? So, if we can just get our O-line set, if we if we can get Cutler have the ability to get to his weapons and get the ball down the field, bro, there's no reason we can't compete if we don't address our holes in our offense right now.
Yeah, you got that right. And D'Lo, I really appreciate your time tonight, man. One last question for you, and I know it's really hard to predict this right now, but what do you think the Chicago Bears' record will be after this season?
Well, I will tell you this. I already took the Bears at 25-1 to win the Super Bowl, and I've already put money down on them. So that tells you my hopes for the next year.
I love it, man. And you know, it's going to be tough. I mean, we just seen this past year a 10-6 record might not cut it.
Well, your 10-6 doesn't do it. You gotta handle business. You gotta take care of the teams you can take care of, and you gotta get some quality wins against the elite in the NFL. You can't lose twice to the Packers. God, that bothers me. You can't lose to a Houston team that came to our place a bad night and still beat us. You can't lose to the Minnesota freaking Vikings. Okay? Handle our business, and we will make it in. And don't have us sitting there rooting for the Packers to win so we can get in. I mean, please.
Yeah, that was ridiculous right there. And D'Lo, once again, I really appreciate your time tonight, man. I would love to have you on during the season. Maybe, I don't know if you know this or not, but Bob Holly, he's a Vikings fan. I would love to set something up with, you and Bob, get you guys on the show at the same time during a Bears versus Vikings weekend.
We can throw down on a Bears-Viking weekend. Trust me on that one.
All right, sounds good. Hey, D'Lo, once again, I appreciate your time. Before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to tell myself and our listeners?
Just, guys, if you guys get a chance to watch Impact Wrestling, there's some good things going on out there. There's a real good product. We're taking our show on the road, and it's enjoy it. And just bear down, boys. Bear down.
Yep, bear down. Hey, D'Lo, take care, my man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.